In this episode, I'm talking to Lukas, a client of mine who has really had a lot of success in my programs. He started with me as one of the founding members of the Self Mastery Accelerator and joined that group as a new coach specializing in helping athletes improve their performance through mindset. One of his biggest breakthroughs was that he discovered his life purpose to help people raise their consciousness. After that, we began working more closely in my one-on-one program. And it was during our one-on-one work that we were able to fine-tune his level of clarity and direction, as well as release mental and emotional resistance to execution, so that he could more fully accept and embrace his new direction in life successfully. The goal of our programs is really to shift into greater levels of embodiment, which means to become what we want to experience in life. When we become what we desire, we identify with it as our reality now in thought, feeling, and action. This is what it means to vibrationally align with your desire, to have your unconscious beliefs and emotions aligned with your conscious desires. You must become it. At this level of embodiment, the action that you take is the physical expression of what you think and feel. This is how you manifest your desire into the physical. Your thoughts permeate the physical world, and this is what Lukas experienced directly when we began working on his ability to hear clearly. Since his teenage years, he had developed significant reduction in his hearing to the point that he needed hearing aids. After releasing certain beliefs and energy imbalances, he reported significant improvements in his ability to hear without the hearing aids. And my hope is that Lukas's story inspires your desire to break through in ways that are important to you.
So I'm Lukas. I'm from Vienna, beautiful Austria, and I'm a mindset coach. And
Yeah.
actually, I have to add, the past couple of weeks, there's been a shift. So now there's a new thing I do as well, just helping young men figure out what they want to do in life, professionally and otherwise as well. I joined the Brook program in a phase of my life where I wasn't that clear on what I wanted to do, actually. And it started through the group program and working with you that I became very clear what that actually was, what I was meant to do, what my purpose so-called was, and how that would also look business-wise. And really from that, joining that program after that, my business and career kind of jump-started and everything became more effortless because there was so much more clarity on what it was that I was working, with whom I wanted to work in what way. So yeah,
Yeah.
since
Yeah.
then kind of it was a little bit of a rocket launch, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. When you started, you were a fitness coach, right? Or no, you were a mindset coach. You were working in the fitness niche.
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of like doing a couple of different things. So fitness, I tried that out, fitness coaching, but didn't really work and it wasn't really what I wanted to do. And stress coaching was how I started more with like the mental side. But for the first months, like almost a year, didn't really work out, and it was, yeah, just a difficult time. I had to work a part-time job as well in that time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm happy that that time is in the past.
Yeah. But it was also a really valuable experience. Hey,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
part of the growth and learning to go through those different pathways. And in that way, you really discover like what your passions are, what your strengths are, what you're good at, what you like. And so these are like necessary parts of the journey of self-discovery, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. So now, and then so in the group program, you were able to really become aware of what your purpose is. And I remember that text that you sent me, I'm here to raise people's consciousness, right? It was
Right.
like this revelation that you had. And since then, you've been on quite a journey. And we started working together again in my one-on-one quantum mechanic program. So share with us what your kind of takeaways, what your experience was like inside the quantum mechanic program, and also what were your intentions in the program?
Yeah. So My intention was based on what I experienced in the group program before, which was just so epic, everything that I learned and the transformation I went through, that I was like, well, if I could work one-on-one with you, I'll just do it. And as I knew that I will work in a similar path as you, I'm just like so committed to my own growth in all ways, and especially when it comes to becoming more conscious, basically, and raising my own consciousness. That was like, well, okay, it's a no-brainer if I have the means to do it. And there were a couple more specific things, like biggest one was still my business, because back then I was clear on what I was doing, and at the time I was already traveling. I think I was in Thailand at the time, traveling and working online, so kind of living the dream. But still, I felt a couple of blocks regarding action taking and just the way I was going about my business. And that was one of the also main motivators, apart from a couple other ones, because there was so much that I took away from the work, but that was one of the main things.
So at that point, you were clear on what you were there to do, but it was about drive, execution, implementation, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, what's your experience been like in working in those areas?
Um, yeah, very good. I could just notice that basically work and earning money became more and more effortless with time. So in the beginning, for some reason, during the whole time, it felt like I was doing the same amount of work, but just the results were different. So it wasn't really about how much I felt I was working, but more, I guess, my focus and the way I went about things that changed. Um, so I would say it was more effortless and just more clear on how I wanted to do business every day and how I wanted to work with my clients and how I wanted to attract clients or the whole sales process, for example, how that would look like. So to go about business in a way that feels good, also including marketing and sales, and not one that feels, I don't know, pushy or sleazy or something like that. Because I struggled with that, and that improved a lot.
What you've described here is like a very personal shift in the way that you're relating to life and
Mm,
business, right?
yeah,
So, what was that way of relating to life and business like before?
yeah. It's interesting because I couldn't remember really before, but now as I'm really connecting with it, I get more clear. Uh, which is a good sign, I think. Um, well, one of the biggest ways that really I stood in my own way was doubt and feeling like whatever I do or how I am is not good enough. That was really at the root, I guess, at most of the things that I did. Because this was really, it was so deep that it kind of impacted business, relationships, everything. Because it was, at least at a subconscious level, how I viewed myself and the world. Um, and that was a really big block. So yeah, that was one probably the biggest thing that changed with working with you is that kind of yeah, that block just resolved. I kind of let go of all these limitations. Uh, Not in a way to kind of overpower it, which was how I dealt with it before that work, which never really worked. Like there were a couple of weeks that it worked and then kind of felt burned out. But really uh letting go of the problem at the root. And yeah, now I feel much more relaxed, calm, confident in my own abilities. And that spreads in all manners. Like there have been a couple people that tell me, well, you seem different. And uh that's just I was like, well, I guess I thought I was how I always was, but it just spoke to the results that I made. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool when other people start to notice that shift in you and they just make those little
Right.
comments. Oh, you seem different. There's something different about you. And
Yeah.
you just said something really cool, which was, I just thought that's how I always was. Because when you make a shift and you become more of your natural, authentic self, others notice the shift. And you may notice the shift too when you really look back at where you were before, but you still feel like yourself,
Right.
right? You still feel like yourself. So it's not as though you've become a different person. You still feel like yourself, but it's like a more natural or authentic expression of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think this is something to keep in mind when people are going through journeys of inner work or coaching programs, is that they will often, before they've gone through a process, they will have this big expectation that the transformation, who they're going to be or what they're going to transform or what the result is going to be, it's going to be like this completely different world that they step into, completely separate from anything they've ever experienced before. And while there will be those elements of new, it's often like this gradual adaptation to more of who you authentically are. That's what I've experienced. And it sounds like that's what you're describing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's a beautiful process, and at the same time, uh, that's where kind of like the echoes of the doubt creeped in the process, because the shifts weren't that like crazy and they didn't take that much willpower and effort of myself. I sometimes thought I didn't make progress. And then I would just have to kind of like think back a couple of weeks, couple of months ago, how I was and what the situation was and how I felt in general. And I was like, all right, it was a completely different thing. Just as in the beginning with the interview, I couldn't even remember how it felt back then.
Yeah, it's fascinating the way that the mind works, and you will just adapt. You'll just adapt very quickly to a new way of being. Just like when you can go in the opposite direction, right? And let's say you're doing really well in life, and then all of a sudden things happen and it throws you off your inner balance, and you start to form negative habits, negative emotional states, and it just becomes a new normal. Tell me more about the new pathway that you're on now, because this clarity that you're creating, that you're forming around what you're here to do, continuously expands. And recently, you said that you've become aware of that clarity even more.
Yeah, it's interesting because that was one of the things I didn't have the intention to get into this topic, but it just happened in a way. Started off with a workshop I visited in Barcelona, and then kind of coming back and doing interviews with lots of different people, in that case, men in my age, and just asking them, hey, what are you struggling with? What's going on in your life? Like, how is life in general? What are you up to? And just being curious. And were like 30 plus interviews I did. And in those 30 interviews, I started to notice that a lot of guys in my age, more or less, like 18 to 30, I would say, they really struggled with what the fuck do I want to do with my life? Sorry for swearing, but that's the kind of like the big question. And I was like, well, okay, I kind of feel like I know that already, but it's interesting that that comes up so often, and that there's such a need for a solution here. And at the time, I didn't have one. I was like, okay, well, I was kind of lucky to stumble into my own thing, but I don't know how to help others with that. And a week after that, all of a sudden, through a membership, I saw a workshop that was called "What the fuck am I doing with my life?" And I was like, "That's interesting. Okay, well, let's just check it out. Let's just check it out. I feel like I have this figured out, but let's go." And I love the workshop from a guy called Alex Baisley, who basically helps people with that question. But he was more focused on people in like middle age most of the time. And so I was curious. I checked out his work. I actually went through his work and was like, wow, I thought I know what I wanted to do and what I wanted to life to look like. Um, and then I noticed, well, there's still a lot to learn. And at the same time, that's an amazing solution to the people that I interviewed. So I reached out to this guy, Alex, and he's basically said, well, I don't want to invest much more time into working with people. I actually want to take time back to spend with my wife. But I love your enthusiasm. You're a coach already, and I would love you to basically use the 20 years of knowledge and work that I put in, and you can spread it to your people. And I was like, wow, like kind of blown away by the opportunity and the grace in the whole process and how everything came together. Because I didn't have that in mind. And so that's actually how the new kind of part came in. So I started trying out his work and combined it with some of the mindset work I did already. And now the results are like, it's such a great fit. Um, and it really just happened. I didn't intend this to happen and the new niche and everything becoming like this crystal clear, but now it's like really crystal clear. And I know for a fact that that could not have happened had I not done the work to be that person and to have all these situations arise and also take some steps towards that. It felt like it just happened, but of course I took action as well. And yeah, now I'm just like, awesome. Let's just keep it going like that. I love it.
The next appropriate step, whatever that is to be, just shows up and appears before you
Yeah.
when you take the action. That's the variable. That's the only variable that you have to control. Just moving in the direction while not overly controlling the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the big ones for me as well. And that pattern, it still is there in the background a little bit, but it's like day and night difference of like trying to control everything and yeah, kind of perfectionism. So kind of like, well, it has to go exactly how I kind of think it out and da da da. And that kind of combined with the doubt, it didn't allow me to kind of move through it and just go for it and take the action. And yeah, that's just so much more effortless now. And it's so cool what can happen with that kind of trust and just going for it and not holding on to what I think is the right thing and the right result in my own little fantasy bubble that I held on for so long in the fear that it would kind of pop. Because what if I take the action and then the fantasy's gone, right? So yeah,
So stepping into more of a experience of flow with life, where there was once more self-doubt. So that this is the degrees of inner conflict, right? There was once more self-doubt, second guessing. It was impacting your drive, like you said earlier. And so now there's those barriers or variables, while still being there to some degree, are no longer inhibitory to
yeah,
the extent that they once were.
absolutely. Yeah, now that I'm aware how to deal with it, even when they arise, that's like the biggest freedom. Like one of the biggest shifts and freedoms I took away was just the knowingness of how to deal with the thoughts and the emotions and the uncomfortableness or like the negativity of it all. Because before the whole process started and working with you, I was like, this doesn't feel good. I don't want that. So just avoid it or get rid of it. And now it's much more acceptance that those feelings, they can arise and it's all right. They are not like entrapping me and putting me in a jail cell and I don't have to suffer for eternity. It's just like a feeling that's there. And with that acceptance, it that really brought one of the biggest freedoms to just go for what I intend. Because even if the doubt arises or the fear arises or whatever. And now I'm equipped with the awareness that it's all right if it comes up and I can invite more of it just so that I can experience it through, realize it's not going to kill me, and then take the action anyways.
Yeah, this is where we gain more conscious control or conscious dominance within our mind versus the unconscious ego dominating the mind mostly. That's all we're looking for, not to have the ego disappear. And
Mm.
it's not that successful people don't have programming. I think this is probably a common misconception for a lot of people. They tend to assume that successful people just don't have challenges or don't have problems or just they don't experience the same self-talk or that kind of thing.
Mm.
And so because of that, they tend to think there's something like wrong with them because they experience those challenges. And
Yeah.
what I'm hearing from you is that the difference is that those inner programs can still exist, but it's that they don't overpower you. They don't control your action.
Yeah. That's really it. I really resonated with you with what you just said there because that was one of the patterns I had as well. Like, oh well, there's doubt. But then my assumption was I shouldn't have this doubt or like this fear or whatever it is. So then I would resist it and be like, I don't want to experience this. And there's shame about feeling like that and pride, trying to covering it in some ways and all these different things, which was all basically just resistance to something that wasn't that bad in the first place. Like it's all right that it's there. And just accepting that is like oof, a lot of pressure off the shoulders.
In our one-on-one program, we use a profiling system. Can you talk about what it was like for you to have an awareness into these deeper elements of the challenges and the strengths that you came into this life to experience?
Mm. Yeah, that was big as well. It's interesting that you noticed that you mentioned that because again, that's like so integrated right now, and I have to bring my awareness back to the beginnings of it all. Um, Even though it took me a little bit in the beginning, once I grasped those truths more, uh, there were a couple of moments where I had like the light bulbs go on or like these full body shivers in very good ways. Lots of them through the whole process, but especially with understanding how like the shadow part or like the unconscious part is really just, as you said, the other side of the coin from the gifts and all the strengths that we put on the table. Um, that allowed me to really perceive myself and everybody else in again a much more accepting light because there were certain traits that I just inherently had and I thought they were wrong in a way or not necessarily good, not necessarily strengths. And there were other characteristics of other people that, for example, I envied a little bit, or where I was like, why am I not like him or like this guy or like that guy? And understanding my own genetics better in that way allowed me to own my own strengths more and be like, well, it's all right that I'm not exactly like this guy because I'm not supposed to. But there's all these strengths that I bring to the table anyways. And me seeing them more clearly, being like, oh, that's one strength and that's another one. And yeah, that's really who I am. In a way, it was like looking at myself and becoming clear of who I already was, but in a way that I couldn't see before the work. And that allowed me to appreciate myself with all the parts of it so much more and also activate these parts more. So it's just stepping into the strengths that are already there, but just more often. more intensely, more intentionally as well. And that led to all sorts of level ups again in relationships, business, personal life, fitness. It just all the whole package.
In our one-on-one program, we experience quantum modalities, right? We use the quantum field to go and identify different areas that are in need of rebalancing. We look for imbalances, right? And then we find balance in certain areas using the quantum field. Can you talk about what it was like for you to experience these quantum approaches to change work?
Yeah. Uh, in the beginning, I actually didn't feel as much, like I didn't notice as much. Um, and again, there was like this, the doubt still in the beginning. So I was like, does this really work? And if, how does it work and all this stuff? But just noticing the shifts in myself and how I experience everyday life very quickly, I was like, ah, that works. So with time, it became very enjoyable just being there and receiving all these sessions and all the work. And it came to a point where I felt like I really lifetime experienced the little shifts that were happening inside my system and noticing kind of like sensations in the body all of a sudden, or kind of memories pop up all of a sudden, that were associated to the imbalances, even though you were saying nothing. But I was like, where's that coming from? So, um, yeah, it seemed in a way magical in the beginning, but with time it just became more normal because we were doing these regularly. Um, and yeah, I was enjoying it because it was so simple in a way. There was no going through the uncomfortableness or like the suffering part, the negative part of all the imbalances. That wasn't necessary. I could just be there and be present. And again, when something came up, it was all right. But most of the time, if there was something, it was subtle and it was gone very quickly. And I wasn't aware that those ways of healing were possible in that way. Before that, I was like, I thought you would have to kind of like re-experience the trauma in a way, but it's just not necessary. So that kind of like eased the whole process, and also the way how rapid it worked, and all the things that I became aware of in the process again. Yeah, amazing.
You experienced, man, a very cool win that for me was, I think for both of us, it was something kind of unexpected. How's your hearing currently?
Yeah, it's still improved. So yeah, so one of the things we worked at, I have a hearing deficiency on both ears. And it started with age 16, something like that, and stayed more or less the same. So normally I had to wear hearing aids, and it was nothing that bothered me too much, although sometimes I was like, why is this? And it's kind of annoying. Um, but we did some work on the hearing deficiency, and a couple sessions after we started that, I could notice that I didn't have to put in the hearing aids as often and as much as before. And for example, when I went to the gym or for training sessions, um, where I didn't have the hearing aids in anyways, I noticed that I could understand my workout bodies and generally people I was talking to much more clearly and effortlessly. And I was actually asking some of my friends who knew me if they noticed a difference, and they were like, "Yeah, you seem to understand us so much better, even without the hearing aid." Because sometimes, even if I had the hearing aids in before, my understanding and the clarity of understanding what they were saying wasn't really there. And they were like, that's gone. And now you don't even have to wear a hearing aid most of the time. And so, yeah, that's something that I very much enjoy, of course, this like new freedom. Um, and also the freedom in a way that even if there are days or situations where I kind of have to put it in just so it's more effortless, the situation, it doesn't bother me. It's not like a sign that I failed or it didn't work. Like it's like it's all right. Pure acceptance of that. So yeah, of course, very much enjoying this win, and that's a big one.
It's a huge one. So you're not only experiencing a physical change in the quality of your hearing, you can hear people better, you can understand them better. So there's been an improvement there, a real improvement. It's being seen and realized by others, but you're also feeling and thinking differently. You're like identifying differently with it. And that was
Yeah.
one of the first things that I remember you telling me about how you were experiencing the shift. Because at first, I remember you going like, is this working? The hearing itself didn't change yet at that moment, but then you started to notice, I'm I'm like okay, I'm more accepting or like less doubtful about it. It was just more of that like at peace with it, and then it started to make the shift in the actual hearing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was very simultaneous. And yeah, one of the ways I of course noticed it when I had my AirPods on, for example, and I listened to something on the Mac or on the iPhone, I could see like the level of volume and how I would not have to like put it up so much. So that was one of like it's happening. But again, there it was like, oh nice. Like that's cool. I can enjoy that. But there again, there was like no, or still isn't any fear or any doubt or anything. It's just the way it is. And that for me, that was also one of, as you said, one of the big shifts really with like, okay, I can accept and I'm in alignment with me being that way.
Lucas, where do you see yourself going from here on out? Now that you have clarity, more clarity around your vision, your purpose, what you're doing, where do you see yourself going from here?
Oof. Yeah, well, it's exciting times ahead for sure. I will go more towards creating spaces and being a space holder as well for especially for men and connecting them more with their hearts, really. And creating spaces where men also can come together to, yeah, to get better in all ways and to connect and be vulnerable and be seen without a mask and go and do the inner work in a safe container where it's not about coming together and just crying about it, but really coming together, seeing each other, and doing the work that's necessary so everyone becomes a better version of themselves in all ways. And that's really where I'm looking to go, more of a like a community style experience. And part of that is, of course, still the inner work, the mindset work, and also guiding people to become really clear like what they actually want to do. That will always be there. But now the way I go about it is a little bit different.
Whenever I speak to someone who does well in life, does well in a coaching program like yourself, I'm always curious to know what you think it is for you that causes you to do well in coaching programs and get results. What do you think
Hmm.
is important for someone when they're entering into a coaching program? They want to achieve a goal in their life. What do you think is critical for them to, like a must have in their mind, so that they can
Hmm.
actually succeed?
Hmm. First thing I would say readiness, meaning I'm actually ready to get better and get the result. Um, and I'm also ready to let go of what I was experiencing up until now. So I guess a certain willingness to look at oneself, to be honest, and to really just do the best one can to, yeah, get better, improve, make progress in the ways that you want. And that also implies being coachable, I guess. So, yeah, for me, there was always curiosity that has improved as well. So I just love getting better and doing the work. I'm like, tell me more. Like, how does this work? And what does that mean? And I experienced this. And so I was always asking a lot of questions. But that was just natural to me out of the curiosity. And yeah, so I guess willingness, coachability, curiosity doesn't hurt. Um, yeah, biggest one is definitely the willingness to, yeah, to just do what's necessary, even if that means letting go of the safe space in a way, or uh, getting out of the comfort zone. It's nothing that's too bad. It's something you want anyways. But yeah, at least you have to be willing to take the action. One thing I shared this with you already, but I want to repeat it. Over the past years, since working with you in the group program, continuing in the one-on-one, you have been one of the most influential people in my life, for sure, no doubt. And I'm so grateful for everything. For yeah, the love that you show up with and your willingness, your presence, your generosity, everything. It really made such a big difference in my life. And that really allowed me to progress in the way that I have over the last years. And my heart's just filled with gratitude for that. So just wanted to say I appreciate you.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. And we'll speak soon, Lucas.
Thank you.
One of the most common patterns that I see among successful people is that they possess a degree of willingness, simply the choice to be open and willing to do something about what they want to create. So consider what it is for you. What is it in your life that you've been wanting to create? Get clear on what that is, and then simply decide to act.